Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uwayama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, August 29th, and the next time we talk to you guys is going to be after the Notre Dame Texas A&M game. That's how close we are at this point for the post-game show. So that's a very exciting time. Marcus Freeman is meeting with the media right now. There's a little bit of news there, so we're going to go over that in just 1 second, and then we are going to preview the game against the Texas A&M Aggies, Jamie. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a very fun show. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so you know whatever it is. We are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. Jamie, I've been looking over the analytics, looking over some things, and I found out that 60% of the people who watch our shows are not subscribed to the channel. 60%.
Really?
Math says that's over half, right? Now look, I'm not a math major or anything, but 60% is more than half the people. So let's we got to pump those numbers up, right? So if you're listening and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It's good. It's a good show. We do a lot of great stuff throughout the week. Jamie's Mr. University. Opposing fans are lauding him in their chat rooms, on their message boards, talking about how good Jamie does in setting up the scouting report for their own team. They wish they had it for their site, right? So that's what we have on our show. We have Mr. Jamie Uwayama. And so subscribe to the show, like the show, interact with the show, get in the chat, make comments, things of that nature. It's going to be great. And as always, this show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing. They have finally restocked all of their bamboo dress shirts online. You've seen them you've seen them on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches, and they're made from proprietary fabric that's cooler and softer than cotton. It's the best shirt for any occasion. Go to esqclothing.com. Use ISD15 to get 15% off your order. That's ISD15 to get 15% off. Jamie, let's go through some of the news and notes that Marcus Freeman has put out there today. First of all, Notre Dame safety Tay Johnson. He had foot surgery today. He is going to be out for an extended period of time. We don't know the nature of the foot surgery, but he's injured this foot before. He injured it in high school. He injured it again. They're going to get it completely cleaned up at Notre Dame. So he's having foot surgery. Styles Prescott, I believe, is also out, and Tabron Benny Powell. They're going to be out for the year. I believe that it was just shoulder injury for Tabron Benny Powell. He had a torn labrum. So that's going to be the situation for them. Marcus Freeman says both coordinators are going to be on the sidelines. Basically, they feel like it's best for this particular team, right? So I think Denbrock has been in the booth. I know that he was in the booth last year for LSU. He's going to be on the field. Al Golden has always traditionally been on the field, so that is no change. Howard Cross is full go, not on a pitch count. Gabe Rubio is a month away and in the rehab phase. Armel Mukam stepped up and will be a guy who will be able to help starting this weekend. Jamie, I know that does not surprise you at all about Armel Mukam. You've seen it. He's been doing really well for Notre Dame and the things that you saw. So that's no surprise. Anything notable there for you that you want to touch on? Be it Howard Cross, that's obviously huge news, but Mike Denbrock's going to be on the field. That's notable.
I think it's notable, but I also think that Marcus Freeman mentioned that that's how it was in Cincinnati, and I think probably the biggest reason why they're doing it that way is he was on the field and Gino Guidugli was up top when they were at Cincinnati, so it's like that same relationship, and they already said that Guidugli is going to be up top, right? So I think if they feel comfortable, like that's the way that it has worked for them in the past, like why would you mess with it if that's what kind of worked best, right? So and I think too, like Denbrock too, I believe when he was, I can't remember if he was on the field or not at Notre Dame. I think he was on the field when he was.
Yes, because there's that there's the meme gif of when when Deshaun Kaiser throws the interception against Duke and Brian Kelly gives the "What are you doing?" He's like, "What are you doing?" And then
yeah,
why'd you do that? Right. So he was on the
yeah.
said that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously those kind of major injuries to those freshmen. I mean, it sucks because you lose a year of being on the field. Really tough for Styles Prescott because he had a thing in the spring as well where he missed the spring. He basically missed this whole year. So that's been brutal for him. That sucks. Hopefully, he's able to kind of get it kind of on track. I don't think there's any need to kind of rush him as a player anyways, because, he was, none of those guys were going to play this year.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think I think Tay Johnson maybe had a chance to play on special teams, but that's about it. So I don't think any of those are impacting this year. And also too, the Howard Cross thing. Yeah. I mean, I hate to say I told you so, but yeah, that's why they weren't playing him. That's why they weren't hey, run through these bag drills. Oh my God, here's the one. Yeah. But that's why they weren't doing bag drills for him on the second day after he tweaked his hammy. They're like, yeah, why are you pushing it right now? You want him to be fully healthy and a full go for what matters, and what matters is in College Station on Saturday night. And so no surprise that he's good to go. And I mean, that's the way it's been the whole time. I don't know why there was any kind of speculation otherwise, but yeah. So, I mean, obviously that's huge because in this game, which is going to be, it should be a close game, a guy like him can make the difference in the game.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. A lot of that, Ben Morrison came out and they're like, yeah, I'm full go. I'm ready to go. And it was like, is he really? He said he was. I don't know, but maybe, right? And the same thing with Howard Cross. Man, it's been a weird offseason with that stuff. Just rumors, not sure what's going on with guys. And it's I don't know, they're out there. I don't think there's any reason to think that they're not playing well. But anyway, that's it's good to hear that he's he is full go, I guess, not on a pitch count. So that's interesting. Jamie, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Here Come the Irish show, right? It was made mention of let's see who brought it up. Jason Smith. Not many shows I'd be willing to pause. Here Comes the Irish show, but here I am. We talked about it a little bit before. Listen, before I get into the critique of it, I do want to point out, I do listen to the first episode or watch the first episode. There's a Jaden Mickey profile on him and his mother and his family as well, which is incredibly touching. It is, and they gonna go through, how it happened, and he kind of talks about the process of when he found out about her illness, and then how they handled it throughout, and then how he found out on the day that she had passed away. It's emotional, right? It is, and kudos to him, to his father. His father's very emotional in the piece, and it just kind of, I don't know. I feel like though Jaden and his dad also, they on social media, they have such a positive attitude about things, and you just kind of wonder how are they dealing with this? And obviously it was very hard, right? And that kind of comes through, and kind of how how Marcus Freeman handled it and everything. That's a very touching piece of the show. So if people see that, I think that's a really good part of it. The rest of the show, a lot of media personalities speaking to camera about Notre Dame lore, basically, what it is to be the head coach. We kind of talked about it before, maybe this show isn't for us who cover the team so closely on a daily basis, right? Like you said, yeah, Hard Knocks style show. I want to see some football stuff, right? Like I want to
Yeah.
see kind of like inner workings of practice, not like inner workings, but like players talking to each other, communicating, and how is that on a day to day? Like that is very much not part of the show. So if you're looking for hardcore football stuff, at least in the first episode, it's not going to be there for you. So that's how that is. I'm wondering how everyone else is kind of taking in the show. Um, so it's it's good content, right? The content is good for Notre Dame. So that'll be interesting to watch going forward. Here's a question from Jim Scales. Question for Greg and Jamie as well. He is here. R.E. Anthony Knapp. Who is the last freshman from Georgia called upon to play his freshman year, and how did he do? I will hang up and listen. Well, I know why this question is for Greg. Last question to come in, Mr. Kyle Hamilton. And you know what, Jamie? We haven't talked about this. Is Notre Dame really going to drop a game at Kyle Field? Is this really going to happen? Have you factored that into your pregame analysis?
At Kyle Fields, I love that. Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but that's a good point, actually. I mean, Kyle Hamilton should tweet that out. Actually, he should.
Yeah, he should.
There's no way Notre Dame's losing at Kyle Field. That is my field. Like, that's amazing. I don't know. It's funny too because I know that people are talking about the atmosphere and they're talking about the heat and all that stuff, and yeah, they are going to be factors, right? But I do think it's first game of a new coach, so they're going to be hyped at the beginning of the game, right? But I also think it's probably a fan base that's been on edge for quite a while, for many years. Like, there are definitely a lot of Kool-Aid drinkers, like every fan base, right? There's a lot of Kool-Aid drinkers that everything is like, hey, this is what's going to happen. We're going to get it going. But
yeah,
they've had a lot of kind of false hope over the years that has been part of it that I think Notre Dame fans know too, right? Everyone has experienced that in different aspects, and that is something that can be felt within the fan base at a game like that too. Like, it's funny that the Seahawks, their stadium, right, used to be like considered like, I mean, just chalk it up as an L. You're not going to win there, right? Well, I mean, when they were in the peak of the Pete Carroll era,
like
when
they
Russell
were also awesome football team.
I mean, Russell Wilson was in his prime, and they had Marshawn Lynch, and they just were loaded, right? Their defense was, one of the best defenses of that, era. Yeah, they were going to dominate. You weren't going to win too many games there, right? And yeah, so the crowd was extra hyped because they were really, really good. And it's not to say the crowd is still good there now, and it was good before they were kind of there, but that isn't going to win you the football game.
It's not a substitute for a good team.
No, it's not, right? So what's going to matter is that A&M makes enough plays to get the crowd hyped, and they make more plays than Notre Dame, and that's the only way that the crowd is really going to be a factor. So that's what you do to take them out of the game, is Notre Dame has to execute and play better. And that's why too, if you can get into a position where the pressure is on A&M, and they have a little bit of like negative momentum, I guess. I know some of these analytics people are like, momentum's not a thing. I mean, sorry, you never played a sport, but it is a thing. It is a thing when you can feel 100,000 fans groaning when someone drops a ball or something, right? Like that does affect it. People are human, right? So I think that's something to monitor within the game. I do think the Texas A&M team is a really, really good team, but it will be interesting to see if they're not firing on all cylinders early, kind of what the crowd reaction is to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's always kind of I think momentum especially matters for fans, right? Like they feel it regardless of anything else. Like how many times have we heard about this with Notre Dame, right? If they're doing well and they're rocking, like the place is rocking. And if it's not, then people are quiet, right? Like you can do that, right? Like getting off to a fast start is kind of always important. It's like kind of like a Captain Obvious thing, but it does have an effect on the fans and the loudness that they are, and the kind of their enthusiasm and their momentum. So that makes a big difference. Chris Schreiber is asking, do you think Denbrock will allow Leonard to check out of plays more than the last staff did with Hartman? He felt like that didn't really happen. And will the helmet communication end the stop and look to this at sideline check?
It's interesting about number 2, because that obviously has been such a big part of college football for such a long time. And I think there's still, because it cuts off at 15 seconds. This is kind of that conversation we had on the previous show, where 15 seconds, that's often when like things are set, and then that's when they're doing the check with me. So that's when they're getting it, getting the change in play. So I think that's still going to exist. I don't know how much it's going to exist for Notre Dame. I think that was, Tommy Rees, obviously that was a huge part of it. And then I think part of that too, with it being with Tommy Rees, was that was what he felt he needed to do for that, specifically that 2022 team, right? Like that was what he absolutely like felt like, I gotta get us in the right play every time, or else it's not going to happen, because we don't have the dudes to do it. Right. So I think that's a factor into it. I mean, I don't think we really know what it's going to be like with Riley Leonard in terms of checking in and out of plays. I don't think this will be a good judge of it, because the crowd could be like a big factor into that process and of getting into different plays. But I mean, we didn't get to see a ton of him in practice checking in and out of stuff, but we've heard the players talk about, oh, there was this play or that play, and he's checking and moving guys around and stuff. So, I mean, that's going to happen. I think with Hartman, I think he probably did it more than people realize, but also I think a little bit of that was impacted by, the lack of experience of the receivers. And some of that is, it kind of hampers you when you're trying to do those kind of things. Right.
Yeah. Chris P asked an interesting question, because I think it's interesting in regards to Klein. I'm going to ask you about that in a second. Do you expect more base D out of Golden to start, or bring pressure out of the gate and try to confuse Wegman?
So does he mean base? He means like
I think just like you're running your stuff. You're not bringing, like when he references bring pressure, I think he just means like
not blitzing.
You're rushing for and playing whatever you want in the back, basically. That's how I see it. I think he's going to bring pressure. I think
bring pressure.
I think the fact that we've heard so much about it in the fall and even in spring, I think that is their base. Honestly, I think bringing pressure is going to be
that's a big part of their identity on defense.
Yeah, a base part of what they do. And I think that when you have such a veteran secondary and guys you can count on back there, you can count on Watts, you can count on Ben Morrison. I think they can count on Christian Gray. Honestly, I think they feel confident there that you feel completely unencumbered to call whatever pressure you want, because you feel like on the back end they can handle it. I just think that's going to be a base part of what they do. I do want to ask you though, like, given you talked to Ian Boyd, right, and that was something you put on in your 6 thoughts on a Thursday today that I recommend everyone checks out on irishsportsdaily.com. You talked to him about the Colin Klein offense and what they can do. How does Colin Klein specifically how does that work with pressure? What types of pressure would you think we would see based on what Colin Klein does, A, in the passing game, and B, also in the running game?
Well, I think it's going to be, I think it's kind of be like a feeling out process, because uh, you kind of won't know exactly how he's going to call the game until it's there, and that's the difficulty of it, because it's um, a whole new team for him, and a whole, like, whole new personnel group to work with. Um, and it's week one, right? So you don't know exactly how, like, what his confidence level is in playing all these multiple tight ends, or what his confidence level is in some of these receivers, which, we've heard that they've had struggles making, catching the football in camp. And then a couple of the guys had struggles, like big struggles last year, catching the football too. So, I think a lot of that makes me think that they're going to, play a bit heavier in a certain sense, but
Mm.
also not a lot of those. But I don't think the guys that they brought in specifically to play tight end, they brought in 3 transfer tight ends who were like multi-year starters at other schools. None of those guys are great blockers.
Right.
So it's like, you're gonna play 12, but you're gonna throw. I don't think that's the way they're gonna do certain things. Like, I don't see that. I guess
Like, there's no point in going size if that size is ineffective. It's almost better to spread
yeah,
out the field and get someone out of there instead of trying to block that person.
yeah. So, I mean, I would think that it does sound like, because he loves the, the pin and pull stuff.
Yeah.
He loves doing a lot of things, and like formationing advantages, and then like pulling uh, to that way to get numbers, right? Like, he loves doing that. So, I think there is a bit of a danger on some of like the early down stuff of like, uh, well, if you bring like a run blitz, I mean, you better hit home, or else it could
Yeah.
like hit
Yeah.
big, right? So I think that is something I think to think about, and it's a great question by Chris P. Because of that, right? Because I
Yeah.
think that's something they could see. But I mean, anytime it's third down, um, I mean, I don't see them dropping 8. Like, I don't think that's what you're gonna kind of see. Like, I definitely think they're gonna do stuff to mess with Weigman, and not just with the pressure stuff, but also like that's kind of what they are really good at on in coverage wise, is like showing something, and then like disguising, and then turning into something else. And that's why, like, frankly, like Riley Leonard like had a miserable game throwing the football against Notre Dame last year.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, that's with pressure, right? And I think they don't. You also, like, that plays into the strength of Wakeman, right? Like, give him time. Accurate thrower, right? Like, he's a talented thrower of the ball. So if you're giving him time, then you're playing into what he's best at. And obviously, you want to take that away. You want to get him out of his comfort zone. You want him to be playing in a way that he doesn't like, right? And so that's why, another reason why you bring pressure. I'm with you. Like, it always makes me nervous on run blitzes with young guys, because you blitz the wrong gap, or you get washed to the wrong gap, and now you're running into someone else, and there's a huge gap there for the back to find, and now they're in the secondary, and you're scrambling, right? That always makes me nervous, right? Like the whole thing with Michigan in 2019 that we talk about all the time. Like, that's what was going on. They just continued to get into the wrong gaps on their blitzes, and Michigan kept cutting back into open space, and it's just, you could never stop them, right? And it's not like those backs were, the greatest thing that ever graced the football field, but anyone can run through holes that are really big. So, so this is that's something to monitor. Sam K with a question here. I know this has been discussed a lot, but who do you think has the best O-line in this game? Seems like A&M is more experienced, but kind of in a bad way. It's a point that I want to make is, I feel like the number of starts has been brought up for Notre Dame a ton. They could, like, if Notre Dame cared about that, they could absolutely make that. They could just start Coogan and Spindler And you wouldn't say like, oh, they're inexperienced. Like, yeah, they would be inexperienced, or they would be more experienced on the line, but they also maybe wouldn't be as good, right? And so it's better to start the better players than it is to start the guys who have a ton of experience. You made the point on the last show, like no one had more experience than Clarence Lewis in the 22 secondary. Ben Morrison was better, so he went out there and played and started games. So that's kind of that where I'm at with that. But what do you think about this? How do you view Notre Dame's maybe talent and upside potential over the experience that A&M has on their offensive line?
I mean, I think both of them come into the games as unknowns, right? Like, I don't think no one should count and say like, oh, Notre Dame's going to have the better line, because we just don't know. Like, we just need to kind of see these guys go out there and play together in this game, in this atmosphere. It does make a difference when it's like you're doing a silent count and it's, the crowd is, live and all that kind of stuff, right? That makes a difference. And even if they performed really well in practice against like Notre Dame's defense, there's a difference. It's a different atmosphere. So we got to see that. So, I mean, I think people, should be cautious about that and kind of wait to see what happens there. And yeah, they do have like really talent. Like, so Pops was saying that other than Nick Squirtin, no one really impressed him. Well, the thing is that I mean, Shamar Turner, he's really good. So that's a guy, like, he's a dude. Like, he could be another first round dude. So they could have 2 first round picks on their defensive line. I mean, how many teams do you play that are going to have 2 first round picks? Not many, right? So
like Notre Dame doesn't have that. Like, we need to be honest about that.
No, Notre Dame doesn't have that. And they have a bunch of other guys too who are like solid, and then, or guys who haven't done anything yet, but have like freaky traits. And maybe they won't do anything because, there are a bunch of these guys who never get it together, but it's a new staff, it's a new year, whatever. Like, we don't know that some guy isn't going to come in, a DJ Hicks, a Gabriel Brownlow, Dindy or whatever. Like, those guys are 5-star kids. Like, we don't know that they're not going to come in and just be like, oh my gosh, like, geez, like, this guy's a problem. Like, so that's the thing with A&M's D line. I mean, their O line, I think they're totally, it's very much in flux, right? They're the guys who have played haven't played well, other than Trey Zoom, who's been very solid to very good. He's a good left tackle. I mean, I wouldn't put him on the alt level or like one of these guys that Notre Dame has had, but he's like a quality starter for sure. But the thing is that across the board, it's going to be new guys basically in new spots everywhere. So Chase Basantis is supposed to start at left guard, and I think they really like him because he played right tackle, but he was kind of playing out of position last year. Mm-hmm. He was a very highly recruited kid. Apparently he had a great camp, but then it's like, well, did he get rolled up on? Is he banged up? We don't know, but they feel good about the left side if he's playing. But if he's not playing, then that shuffles things, obviously. And then they brought in a kid from Utah to be the starting center, who started 8 games for Utah last year, but he was like fine there. And to be honest too, if like he was really that good, he probably would have just stayed at Utah. Like I don't know for sure that he was, I don't think he left for a bag, like I think he left because it was like, he didn't have for sure a starting spot at Utah. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's more unsettled from center to, right tackle for them, where the guys just really haven't played that well. And, they brought in another kid from Kansas who's apparently had a really good camp at right guard, Armaj Reed Adams, but is he going to have to play right tackle because they don't have trust in the right tackle? Like, that is a possibility. So they got a lot of questions there. They've been bad for like really bad the last few years. And I think part of that was Steve Adazio was there, and he was a guy who was went from head coach back to, he's head coach for many years, and then he went back to being an offensive line coach. And he's from like a different era. He's very much in the Harry Hiestand. I mean, he's been coaching O-line in college football since like the 90s.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing that for 30 years. The kids are different. And especially when you're like the head coach doing that. And I think he like chewed up and spit out a lot of dudes, like in terms of like killing their confidence. So they got a new guy, obviously Adam Cushing, the Duke, offensive line coach. But I don't know, sometimes a new coach changes everything for some people, but sometimes it's like, well, I mean, that guy's already lost because it's not. So, and the reality is we don't know. We don't know, but I think no one should expect them to have a really good line. Like they should be, maybe they'll go from bad to decent, like I think that's the kind of way to look at it. And maybe they'll go from decent at the beginning of the year to good later on. But I mean, they got a lot of questions there too. And no one on paper would look at Notre Dame's defensive line and say they didn't have an advantage over Texas A&M's defensive or offensive line.
Right. And I think the part of this game that has been not talked about as much by really anyone is, I feel like of the two teams, Notre Dame's skill positions are more likely to aid in making up for maybe a poor offensive line. Like that's the thing that I just keep coming back to is Notre Dame can take advantage of so many guys at their disposal, whether it be the running backs, whether it be the wide receivers, whether it be the tight end, right? Multiple tight ends that Notre Dame can have, like multiple receivers that can have a big game for Notre Dame. Like A&M just simply doesn't have that. They don't. I mean, when I talked to Carter, like he was straight up said, like skill positions are a concern for A&M just across the board, right? And now Notre Dame's got, Bo Collins and Jaden Thomas. They've got Jaden Greathouse. They've got Jordan Faison. They've got Jaden Harrison. They've got Chris Mitchell, right? Like the Love and Price, like they can elevate the entire offense just through their talent and getting them the ball in space and having them make a play. And I just feel like that's a better formula for having that's a formula for having for the offensive line performing better than maybe they should, because the defense has to worry about all these other things, right? Whereas I don't think Notre Dame has that same concern. It doesn't mean it'll play out like that. It doesn't mean that guarantees that Notre Dame's going to completely shut down the skill positions of A&M, or the A&M doesn't have anyone. Like, of course they do. They have talented players, right? It's not like they don't. But it's just more likely that the team that's going to be elevated by their skill is going to be Notre Dame, right? Like, I feel like Notre Dame's skill guys versus their secondary is an advantage for Notre Dame in a way that the opposite is not true for Texas A&M.
I would say it's probably more of a toss-up between Notre Dame and Notre Dame's skill guys versus their secondary, because they do have a lot of talent there. And I think, Mike Elko is a really, really, really good coach, a defensive coach, and a really good secondary coach. So I think they have like plenty of guys there that are can be next level guys, right? So they're going to be good. But I would say if you were going to compare Notre Dame's defensive backs to, say Notre Dame's defensive backs versus A&M's skill guys, you'd say, well, you would take any day of the week, you would take Notre Dame's DBs, right? So that's the way that I would look at it.
Yeah, like that's what I'm talking about. What's more likely, not what is definite, right? Like I don't know what's definite, but I feel like Notre Dame has more chances to hurt Texas A&M, like Texas A&M's defensive backfield than the inverse. Like I just think that's more of a likely scenario, right? And especially when you consider the tight ends. Like the tight ends, Mitchell Evans is a problem, right? He was a problem for Ohio State. He's a problem for Duke. He is a problem for kind of everyone, and that's something that teams have to deal with. And not every team that you face has a tight end like that.
Yeah.
So It's just like
No, I
that's
was
why
gonna
I
say,
look at
like,
it
if
from
you were
a
gonna say who the most proven skill guy out there on out of either team, you would say Mitchell Evans
yeah.
is that guy. And you would say, well, out of the running backs who are going to take out of these, you'd say Jeremiah Love. You'd
Yeah.
take over, their guys, and then at receiver, I mean, I guess Noah Thomas, I think is, he's going to be a guy for them, and maybe you would take him over, say Bo Collins. You could, whatever, but I don't think it's like a big enough gap to be like, oh, this is there. And then you always have, Notre Dame's corners who are like, well, these are the guys who are covering them. So, yeah.
Yeah. I just, again, I'm talking about what's more likely and not what's because like, you don't know. And that's the thing about, openers too, is no coach can really go into an opener knowing exactly what they're going to get from their units, especially either of these offensive coaches,
Yeah.
right? I think that, again, I said it before, the unit that is most confident in what they're going to get is Al Golden's defense, because look, they've done it before. He's been coaching them. This is his third year. So they are the most, ready group of everything. What is something that you're kind of monitoring beyond, like, turnovers, right? Explosives, things like that. What is kind of an in the weeds type thing that you're looking at as could be kind of a difference maker in this game?
Well, I mean, from A&M's perspective against Notre Dame's defense, I think it's the factors that, like, early on, they could kind of steal some points based on, like, hey, we're just showing you a bunch of stuff and getting, like, um, we get this drive basically because it's like we're just showing all these things that you never did. So it's similar to that Navy first drive last year, right? Where that's something that's like Notre Dame spent all this time preparing for it, and it's like they come out and it's like, wow, this is like you're kind of scrambling to get it going, but things always settle in after that first drive. So, but that's a way to kind of steal points, obviously, for K-State and kind of get some early stuff there. And I would say also, like, what I talked about earlier with Klein, kind of like formationing things to get Notre Dame into, like, possibly like a bad call, right?
Mm.
And that's something that can happen, especially early on in the season, where you can't check out of it, or you didn't check out of it because you didn't know that this thing, and it's a different look. So I think that's something where A&M, because they have this speed too, even though they have all this unproven skill talent, they have enough speed that it's like you make one mistake and a guy could go, because it's like that's the kind of speed that they have. Where, like, they're going to have Terry Bussey's he can flat out run, right? Like
Yes.
he's a stud. So there's that kind of thing. I would also say too, like, um, special teams, I think, is going to be an important part of this game. Like, and I would say Notre Dame, I would give them an edge going into it. So I think, but that's probably where, when you're talking about a close game, and I'm thinking about, like, Marty Biaggi had that fake punt against Duke last year, which is the same special teams coordinator at
Yeah.
Texas A&M right now. Well, think of how huge that was. In the hindsight, in the game, of like how important that ended up being in the game. Like, they didn't have many, like, first downs in the first half, like, where they were doing anything. Like, they needed that at that time. It was one of their only explosives in the game. So, like, that kind of thing. Also, like, what could it be if, like, James Rendell's like like booming one, and it's one of these ones that, like, gives Bussy a hard time with it, right?
Mhm.
Or Bussy breaks one or something. Like, there's those kind of factors into it. But I think, like, special teams is definitely something, like, no one is really kind of talking about, but it could end up being really big in what could be a tight game. And then I would say the other thing is that, like, Connor Weigman, everyone just kind of assumes, like, man, this guy's lock it in. He's great. right? Like, and it's not to say that he won't be a first round pick or whatever. I don't think Saturday night is the night that he's going to show, man, let's anoint him right now, because one, the defense he's going against, like, name a quarterback that Notre Dame didn't give a tough time to. Like, you could say Caleb Williams since Al Golden's been there. Caleb Williams in the first USC game, but most of that was just Caleb Williams pulling stuff out of his butt.
Being crazy. Yeah.
Yes. So, because CJ Stroud was like his worst game, like Riley Leonard, like, name a guy, like, he does that. Caleb Williams last year, like, that's what Al Golden's defense does. That's what they do. And that's what they have, these guys who, like, and they have all these playmakers and, the experience in the secondary, and they have all this stuff. So it's like, I just don't see like Weigman having like just like a super highly efficient, great game. Like, I don't, it just doesn't happen against an Al Golden defense. And if he did, then yeah, you know what, crown him, because that would mean something. And I think the other thing is that, like, everyone's taking the super small sample size that he had last year and kind of his sample size of what he's done overall, right? I think he's like, in his starts, he's like thrown 18 touchdowns to 2 picks in his like 8 career starts, which is great. But it's like, there's got to be context to that. And it's like, well, when those games that he's playing the freshmen were like, those weren't like the big games. He didn't have to do that. He wasn't doing it against Bama, like, it wasn't doing it against the heart of the SEC West. And then last year he played in 4 games and his numbers look fantastic in it, right? And you look at his QBR, which is, ESPN's metric for measuring quarterbacks. I think it actually does a good job of kind of like accurately, it's better than straight passer rating for college quarterbacks, because it takes in the running part of it as well. And I think that is huge, especially in college football. And if you look at 125 attempts or whatever, Bill Connolly had this in his kind of like preview thing, he was 3rd in ESPN's QBR with 125 plus dropbacks or whatever. So like, wow, that's pretty awesome. But it was 125 dropbacks, and like over half of them came against Louisiana Monroe and New Mexico, and those defenses stunk. Like, they stunk. They were terrible, right? Yeah. And I mean, I want to shout out here, like, Clark Brooks, who works for On3. He covers Kentucky stuff, but he does like national stuff for them. And he's a great analytics follow for anyone who is looking for some kind of deeper dive stuff. He does a ton of stuff on the SEC. And I mentioned this in 6 Thoughts today, but he highlighted how Weigman has done a nice job of like getting rid of the football to kind of avoid negative plays, which, obviously is a good thing. But in doing that, he's thrown a lot of balls that are like 50-50 balls, and, 20. So his 24.7% of his attempts were considered toss-ups. So like 50-50 balls. Yeah. Well, Notre Dame, just under Mike Mickens in general, last year, they were fantastic at those too, right? They were 35. Teams completed only 34.9% of those like contested catches against them. And just traditionally under Mike Mickens, there's a reason why he's considered the coach that he is. Fundamentally, these guys finish through the catch point and break up so many balls that are like, hey, that's completion. Quarterback makes a great throw. Great catch by the receiver. Guy just worked through the hands, didn't catch it, didn't break it in. That is a constant. So when you think about those kind of things, and you think about how, so Weigman completed 82.7% of his passes, 11 yards per attempt against New Mexico and Louisiana Monroe. They were 131st and 126th in EPA per attempt. Like, 2 of the worst passing defenses in the country. Against Miami and Auburn, they were 53rd and 66th in EPA attempts. So like average, or like maybe slightly above, but pretty average, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was 58% and 6.1 yards per attempt. I mean, that's a massive drop off.
Yeah.
And by the way, Notre Dame was first in EPA per attempt last year. And let's just say Notre Dame isn't first in EPA per attempt this year. They're going to be like top 10. It's going to be like a great, because the pass rush, the players.
Right. Like the fundamentals are still the same.
Yes. They're going to be one of the best pass defenses in the country. Like, so really, like, if they get into situations where it's like, hey, we got to pass to win this game, I mean, I will say, like, if it's like live in-game betting, you can put money on Notre Dame in that case. If A&M can't run the ball on them, because I don't think that they're going to be able to have the kind of success where, like, Weigman will probably have to, like, create stuff on his own outside of it. He's not a guy who runs a lot. And maybe he will run more because that's what Klein has done with his Kansas State quarterbacks. But they've also had like a ton of injuries at quarterbacks at Texas A&M over the years. And like the drop off between Weigman and the next guy could ruin their season, right? So I don't know how much they're going to do it where Notre Dame's bringing in Riley Leonard to, like, that's going to be part of the game, right? Is his running, where Weigman is like, yes, he can run. He's a good athlete, but he might have to run way more than you would think in this game just to kind of, move the ball there, because I just don't know. When you have questions at receiver and then unproven stuff against a really, really good pass defense, I don't think enough people are talking about that.
No quarterback who has beaten Notre Dame has done so, with the exception of Caleb Williams in 2022, without Cam Hart, without Tariq Bracy. No quarterback has gotten over on Notre Dame, even in their wins, by throwing the ball. No one. It's not been a thing. Like CJ Stroud, but like fourth quarter, like 21 points, right? Like, and that was with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka and all those guys, right? Like,
and they ran the ball to win the game.
And they ran the ball to win the game, right? Like, you need to do that. Like Jack Plummer didn't. Obviously, McCord did not last year. I mean, he had the one drive, but like 17, you ended the game with 17 points.
Threw a pick that should have been dropped, and there was like a couple tip balls.
He threw an interception.
Let's be honest.
For all intents and purposes, he ended the game with an interception, right? So you can count on Notre Dame dropping the ball every time if you like. That's fine. And then you have Cade Klubnik for Clemson, who did not have a good game, right? No. Numbers wise, like, if you're going to beat Notre Dame, it has to be some other way. It can't be your quarterback going ham on you, right?
Yeah.
And so, and especially if he's not going to be dual threat guy, right? So, like, that is a problem. It's not even a Connor Weigman conversation, really. It's this is what Notre Dame makes you do thing. Yeah. And so that's something. How are they going to mitigate that? How are they going to, solve that problem? And I think, what's his name? Someone put in the chat about, Mitchell Vahalik said, Joel Klatt has Notre Dame 24-9. That aligns with my highly biased, completely unobjective opinion. Like, but Joel Klatt has the same question. How do you solve the problem? That is, how do you create offense in a situation, assuming turnovers are, because look, turnovers are always going to be a factor, right? Against Louisville, why did Notre Dame lose? They turned over 5 times. Like, if Notre Dame turns it over 5 times, Jamie, I think they might lose the game, right? Like, this is not a hot take.
Yeah.
In sports, right? Like, it just isn't. So, so like you can only evaluate the teams on paper and making your judgments, and that's a problem that I don't see how Texas A&M solves it on a consistent basis, right? Like, maybe you have a drive where you hit something, but consistently over and over again. I don't know how you solve that problem. You want to solve problems, and if you have a media company that isn't getting it done for you, then solve that problem and go with VSR Media Founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh, VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Jamie, let's talk about predictions here. I align fully. I submitted my season-long predictions to Mike. We'll only talk about this game. I am fully in line with Joel Klatt. I have Notre Dame 27-10 to win the game. I just don't. It's for the same reason.
27-10. Wow. Okay.
I think it's going to be close. Like I think it'll be like 13-10, like maybe late third, right? And then
That
Notre
makes
Dame,
sense, yeah.
Notre Dame touchdown,
Maybe a turnover or something, yeah.
Yeah, 20-10, go down 27-10. They're fully in control. I think people are going to be nervous during this game. There's going to be a lot of nervous feelings, right? And that's okay, right? That's no problem. That's what college football is. But I think Notre Dame will pull away. I think they're the better team. I think they're the better roster, and the program is more established, right? A&M can have a good season and lose this game. Right. I've told you before, I'm intolerant to a loss. Barring, something completely unforeseen. It is so like if Notre Dame wins this game, all systems go for them. Like you have a path that is, you should dominate the rest of your schedule. And so it's like, you go win the game. Go take it. Go take control of your situation. Go be a great college football team in 2024. It's right there. They need to do it. You're facing an opponent that is just, you are better than. And look, they've lost this game in the past. It wouldn't shock me. Like if they lost, I wouldn't be like, well, didn't see this coming. Like, yeah, they lost to Louisville last year. I think Louisville ended up being better than what this A&M team is. I mean, we'll obviously see. That's with hindsight, right? Maybe A&M's just like a sleeper team, and their wide receivers.
This team has more talent than that Louisville team.
But I think that Louisville team just, I think
a lot them being a 10-win team, it lot came together for them for sure. Yeah.
Right, a lot came together for them, and maybe that could happen A&M, right? But I'm just like, I just think Notre Dame, they need to be better than they were. I think they're very well set up to be better than last year, especially offensively. The line is a question. You've got your guys who won the job. They need to go do it. That's kind of where I'm at. Where are you at, Jamie?
I had Notre Dame 20-13. That's what I picked, and I do think that like if this game was at home, I mean, I'd probably take Notre Dame by a lot more, I think, because I just think that would set up for them, and it would be like a much harder game for Mike Elko in his first game and a road game and all that kind of stuff. The fact that it's at home is a factor, or it's a true road game to open the season in this prime time. Like, these are tough games. Like, these are very tough games. It doesn't matter what team you kind of have. And you look at like what Notre Dame 4 times since 2016 they played on the road to start the season, and they lost in OT to Texas. The score would make you think that they won going away in Louisville, but that was a tight game, for too close for comfort for a lot of Notre Dame fans for a large portion of that game. Mm-hmm. And it looked kind of sloppy. And then everyone knows the Florida State game, where it was like, that was a wild game that they won in overtime. And then you look at the Ohio State, which they lost, lost a close game in the fourth quarter, right? Mm. But look at that team then and look at Notre Dame now, and it's kind of goes back to what you're saying, where Notre Dame is in just a so much better spot. Like they're so much more talented. Like they're so much better at the skill positions. The quarterback, it's like not even close. Of like looking at that Tyler Buckner compared to this, like an experienced Riley Leonard. It's just not even. It's not even close. And you look at just the defense and the amount of proven playmakers on the defense, not just guys who, and not to mention the guys that I think are going to be really good. Like a guy like Adon Schuler could be like a big factor in this game. That it could be a coming out party for guys like him and Boubacar Traore and all these guys, right? So I just think that they're way better set up to win this game than they would be normally, even with the disadvantage of like A&M's D line versus their O line, because one, they also have like a better staff to kind of like mitigate some of these problems that they're going to have to deal with. So I just think that's the kind of deal where like, if it was under different circumstances where I didn't feel like, I really question how they're going to handle this on offensively. Like, yes, Klein is going to present some problems, but they will adjust and they'll keep adjusting and they'll keep their problem solvers. That's the staff. And they have too many guys that can make plays, that can make a difference on defense. So I just think it's going to be very, very difficult for A&M to score enough points to win the game. And I just think that the difference in the game will end up being Riley Leonard doing enough when it matters. Like his numbers might not look great in this game, but he will do enough to get out of a negative play, like, create something out of a negative play, turn something into like a big positive that was a negative play. And because of that, they'll be able to put up enough points to win the game. In saying that, I do think this Texas A&M team, I would not want to play them 5 weeks from now or something, because I do think that they are going to be better and better as the season goes along. I think the defense it's going to be good right away. I think it's eventually going to get to nasty. Like they are going to be really good once they kind of figure out that other linebacker spot. Once all the DBs kind of get settled in, like all the new faces there, and together with that D line, like that is going to be a problem. It's going to be a really, really good defense in the SEC. And I do think like their O-line will get better, and they'll probably figure out kind of who are the guys for them on offense and kind of just hone in on that. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if A&M ends up winning double-digit games, even if they lose this game. Like, I do think that is a possibility, even with they're going to have a tough schedule, but that's a possibility for them too, which obviously that would end up looking good for Notre Dame if they win the game, right? So, I don't know. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be fun. There's a lot of little small details that could make a difference in the game. And I can't wait, man. I'm excited. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Like, I said 27, right? So that, more than likely includes 2 field goals being kicked by Notre Dame, right? Where's Mitch Jeter at? Right? Where is he doing well? Right? We haven't really seen him, right? Like the vibes aren't the greatest. So maybe he's missing a couple field goals, right? And that hurts momentum. That hurts, it changes the way
vibes aren't great though. I don't understand that. I do not understand.
The vibes aren't great because there's an absence of good vibes, in my opinion, because there's no information, right?
I mean, Biaggi like sure sounded pretty confident about him. I mean, and
coach
then
speak.
Well,
it doesn't matter.
I mean, all he's done is made kicks in actual games. So I don't know. Like, it's just, to me, it's like, I don't get it. I'm like, I would be shocked if he like goes out there and misses 2 kicks in this game. That's like what he missed the entire season.
That is true. That is true. I'm just saying it's possible. I'm just saying that things can happen. They lose points on drives or whatever it might be. and things go haywire, crowds going crazy. Like I said, it wouldn't shock me if A&M won this game. I don't think they're terrible. Like they're not, right? I'm just envisioning a way that the game goes. Okay, that's all I'm doing. And so if it goes the way that I'm thinking, then I think they'll win the game. I think Notre Dame's better. So I don't think that's a big weird statement either.
I don't think it's, first of all, too, I don't think it's crazy for like either team to potentially score 27 points based on like I said, about like the special teams. Like if you get a play out of there, you get a play from the defense. Like think about that Wisconsin game where Notre Dame did nothing on offense the
They
whole
scored
game.
41 points.
Yeah, and it was like based off of the one touchdown by Jack Cohn to Kevin Austin early in the game, and then it was the one good like short field drive by Drew Pine, where he did the Conor McGregor, which everyone loved, which was great. But and then it was at the point, it was 13-10 for Wisconsin. Chris Tyree took that kick, and then it was like Graham Mertz pick six city from there. like so stuff can happen and it can flip, and we'll see how it goes down. But I don't think it's wild to say like 27 or 24. Like could easily happen. Like it's
Notre Dame's gonna have around 12 possessions, right? Just assuming whatever, 12, 13 possessions, maybe 11 possessions. I'm predicting they score on 5. It's not the craziest thing ever. I'm not saying they're gonna have like 550 yards of offense. That's not what I'm saying. I just think 27. It's not that hard to score 27 points.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, I think it'll be close. Like late. If it's 13-10. And Notre Dame has a long touchdown drive, and it's 20-10. A&M's pressing, maybe short field, score another touchdown. Like it's not that crazy. Like it's not that crazy at all. So anything else, Jamie? Oh, wait. Rick is here. Another Aggie. I hope everyone stays healthy and both teams bring their best. This team is dramatically better than last year's. Looking forward to Smash Mouth game. Much respect to the Irish. Aggies by 9. That's what Rick says. Appreciate it. Appreciate your viewership. Appreciate you being here. Aggies by 9. What is that? 30-21, something like that. That's a score. What's a good Aggies by 9 score?
Oh, man, I don't even know.
27-18 somehow.
Yeah, it's it's very distinct. I usually pick weird. So in my season preview that people will see, I pick weird, like the
you don't pick like yeah.
I pick it on purpose because I'm like, I have no idea what the score of this game is going to be. So I'm like, they're playing Northern Illinois, Notre Dame, 57 to whatever, and it's like you got to do some weird stuff to get to actually 57, but it just somehow whatever. Like so.
Yeah. Brad Klaustermeyer. I'm in a weird place where I can't see why we don't beat the Aggies, but I'm quite nervous simply because I've never seen our new offense and skill players along with the O-line. Yeah, totally. It's just that's
valid
feeling. It's just like, yeah, that's fair, right? Like, I don't know. You try to be as objective as possible with these things, but like there is the unknown, and that's the hard part about picking openers, right? Like we don't know, and this is the least we've seen Notre Dame in fall camp in a while, and I think that's also true of A&M, right? Like there's a lot of unknowns in this game. Rick says it's going to be 9-0, 9-0 for Rick. It's gonna be like a redux.
Not an entertaining game, so I'm hoping
of the Bama redux of the Bama LSU game from back in the day was 9-6. Rick, thank you for the super chat. Let's go. $20. Listen, Notre Dame fans, Rick is in here. This is twice now that he has given us a super chat. We very much appreciate it, Rick. stunting on the Notre Dame fans in the chat, just really doing that. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you very much, Rick. That's awesome. Good luck in the game. I hope you have a great time. And listen, if y'all win, listen, Dutch 1999. I assume you're A&M fan. Maybe not. Either way, you made your prediction. If you turn out to be right, come in the post game show and you can we'll issue our mea culpas and throw our hands up and we'll say we were wrong and you were right. Come back, Dutch, and gloat if you'd like. And if Notre Dame wins, then you can come back and we won't be mean because that's not how we do things here on the Hit and Hustle show. What do you say, Jamie? Is that going to do it for today? Great show. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait for the game. We'll be back after the game. So it's always, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes after the game officially ends. We'll be popping on here. We'll go over everything. We'll recap everything. And I'll be back on Sunday with my Sunday morning recap. So a lot of fun stuff coming for Notre Dame fans on this channel. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. Enjoy the game, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.